Running Sentences presents Against an Angry Ocean. Part 1. Launching a Ship. With the changes the ocean has faced lately, it's been harder and harder to ship things from one location to the next across the seas. With an experimental boat now set to sail, with a crew that have to try and face down these weird, dangerous elements. This story is written and narrated by Michael Henry. It is a work of fiction, so any names, characters, businesses, events, and situations within the story are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real people, situations, characters, businesses, events, and/or fictional businesses, characters, events, etc., and so on, is purely coincidental. Copyright 2025, Michael Henry. All rights reserved. The early morning sun calmly lit the sky and shone down onto the docks. All was nice and quiet except for the man parading in front of the four sailors who stood in front of their new ship. A ship that gleamed and looked ready to cruise across the seas, unlike any other cargo ship around, at least so far. For one thing, it was state-of-the-art and had many amenities, plus all sorts of technology to keep her floating through the rough seas. The four of you have been chosen because you're scientists, sailors, or something like that. My people tell me you're the best ones for the job, and I have to trust them because of court orders and so on, and if I want to keep my job, so... The CEO was interrupted, and as the secretary comes running up with a piece of paper. He takes it, looks it over, and then hands it back to her. As I was saying, your job was to get the boat across from this port to the European continent. It's been a long time since we could freely send goods back and forth. This ship should be able to make the voyage. Sir, yes, sir. Ah, yes, it is good of you to speak out, Captain Ursula. You will be held personally responsible should anything happen to our cargo. Granted, so will the rest of your crew, but you will get the brunt of all of the blame. This mission must succeed. Do you understand me? The four sailors all stood at attention, but nodded yes. Good. Tomorrow morning you will set off on the greatest adventure, and we will rely on you to carry out your duties, even though this most beautiful machine we have ever created is almost completely automated. With one more stern look, CEO Hendrik Storm nods back, then turns and strolls off towards some offices along the docks. The group waited until he was out of sight, and then began to board the boat. A nice, soft-looking room, slightly spacious, greeted Sky as he stepped inside. As the first mate of the ship, it was his duty to make sure that things were right. Everything, as the CEO had said, was automated, so he didn't really have much to do. His luggage had already been taken aboard previously, and he had already toured much of the quarters and engine room that he could get to. Now all that was left to do was sit and wait. This was already disrupted as the speaker system came to life. First mate, what does the weather report look like? Hold on, it will take me a second to pull it up. Shouldn't you already be on top of it, first mate? I just got into my room and the weather changes from hour to hour, Captain, out on the ocean. All the weather people gave up on forecasting what's going out there years ago. No excuse, I want a quick report. He sighed to himself, having not expected that. The captain was going to be a hard-ass about all of this. With a quick step, he went to his desk and got the computer attached to it to come to life. There wasn't much on it that it allowed him to do, and the weather report was soon laid out before him. Storms, and storms wait us out there, which is exactly what we were already told about. But it is come here. Yeah, it's strange that the weather report shows things that are clear here for the next few days. Usually it's a random weather combination hitting us. Well, I guess we can thank our stars that we can no longer see and make sure that that we have what we have, and make sure that everything is ready for tomorrow. You're on first shift, Captain? I'll be at the bridge station, looking over things until lunchtime, then you take over. Sky grunted it was okay as the intercom cut out, and set about trying to make his room more comfortable. With her conversation completed with Sky, Ursula sat back in the captain's chair. She already knew the weather report, but it was good to get backup information from all sources. She scoured the banks and banks of screens in front of her, all of them reading out information on them. It was all automated, so she didn't really have anything to do until the boat set sail. And even then, it was simple button presses to keep her busy. Best to concentrate on things and make sure all is right with the boat, she said to herself. Her hand moved over to another intercom button, this one down to the engine room. Engine room? How do things look down there? Beachy. Chris, that isn't a report. It is if you know me, but since you're asking for more, the auxiliary engines are purring like kittens, running real smooth and likes all that. We're getting ready to start up the main ones now and keep 'em warmed up for setting sail. There was a soft shudder that went from keel to stern on the boat, and Ursula felt it even seated in her spot on the bridge. You'll report when you know more? Yep, Kaylee's here too, by the way, doubly sure things are all even though the machine's taking our jobs. I can see some of the readouts on my computers now up here. They're all green looking. I'm seeing some yellows on my charts, but those can be attributed to the fact that the engines aren't warmed up yet and just started recently. Kaylee's words were a good sign in Ursula's mind to be afraid, but they couldn't scrap the mission because of yellow charts. This meant they would be operating not at capacity, but how ships often did with their engines, on a sort of level near peak, but not quite. Never at peak, unless it was a war. Right, keep an eye on them and see how things are going, Kaylee, and Chris. I don't want any surprises for tomorrow's launch. Got it? Aye, Captain. Aye, Captain. Hendrik sat down in his plush chair not far from the docks in his brand new boat, one that would or should be able to transport goods back across the oceans. If only his crew knew how to handle the things. There was severe doubt in his mind and stomach that things would go well and then he'd have to answer to people. This thought was giving him a headache along with his office phone, which was already blinking a red light silently. His hand reached out for it, snagging it to lift it to his ear. Yes, what is it? You have a call from Omnicorp Incorporated. Did they say what they wanted, Miss Jewel? No, just that they were eager to get through to you at once. It isn't the highest level of workers over there, though. He felt the squint of frustration coming on as he questioned his secretary's decision to bother him. A low-level employee at another company, how important could that be? Though his mind instantly ticked over to the boat. Joel, did we have them do any work on our new boat? No and yes. Oh, what the fuck does that even mean? Why would I want to talk to this person? They said it was important, and you said only to interrupt you if someone said it was important. Fuck. Fine. Transfer them through in a minute. I have to get my work mind in work mode. He put the receiver back, doing his best not to slam it down into place. Then took a few deep breaths while waiting for it to blink again. A moment later, though this time a green color, it did so. He waited for it to have blinked more than a few times before picking up. Hello, this is the CEO of Shipping Ship Incorporated. Who am I speaking to from this Omnicorp Incorporated? Mr. Hendricks, it is good that I got through to you. Is it now, sir? Who are you? Apologies, my name is Brad Dunk, and I'm an engineer who worked on plans for your boat. Hendrik now sat upright in his chair all of a sudden. He was all ears for what was to be said next. Too many plans rode on this thing going right, and if it went wrong, well, he already knew problems were going to come down on his head. As I understand it, the organization you work for didn't do any work on the ship, Hendrik pointed out. Not work, no. We built parts for other people who did work on it, though, and, we're just following up on some stuff, Mr. CEO. Alrighty then, Mr. Brad. What's this big emergency you need to warn me about? The stabilizers weren't built correctly or to spec on your new ship. But that's fine. We did away with most of them in the planning stages as they were creating problems elsewhere. The only ones left are in the engine compartment. Help keep things in line, I guess, was what the official diagnosis was. Are you sure, Mr. Hendrik? Yes. Which ones are the problems that you had, though? That's the important part of this. You can't simply drop information and not clarify what you mean, especially when it comes to a very expensive boat with a lot of money riding on its success. And there was a bit of stuttering coming from this man he was talking to, which was concerning for Hendrik. There were many people out there who wanted to stop his venture, and this man, this Brad, just seemed unsure of everything. Well, it's really all about the stabilizers on the rudder of the ship that are connected to the engine. Those? We went through hundreds of changes on those and went through several supplies, none of them which had links to you, Hendrik pointed out. Well, really? I was pretty sure they did. Alright then, just wanted to make sure that they weren't ours. The line went dead, but even as Hendrik sat back, his mind came with plenty of worry about it. Things would probably be alright, though checking the design schemes once more couldn't hurt, could it? He rose from his chair and began searching for the paperwork to see these stabilizers might actually be. The busy work of staring at screens and then comparing them against other screens had been dull. Chris and Kaylee both had kept an eye on things and what dials they could find in here. The only thing that the engineers of this ship had won out on their demand for was that there be some physical dials and information in this engine room. The problem was that while they'd won out, they'd never specified how many they were needed, and so there were a measly 20 that could be counted on for proper information. Engines got into the green and have been steady for the past hour or so. I think that we can shut it all down for now. Chris nodded and began flicking buttons on the screen next to him, to what Kaylee said. The whirring of the engines slowly began dying down, and they removed their soundproof headsets that had walkie-talkies to them. It wasn't that the engine was loud, it had been built to run quiet, but they had also been taught safety first. You're going to report to the boss? The CEO or the captain? I meant Ursula, Kaylee. Yeah, anything strange come up on your side of things? I was going to go talk to her. A lot of yellow and things were slow to come up to green, but other than that, she ran everything. Easiest report to make then. Kaylee tapped a button on the nearby console, allowing her to open a mic to the captain on the bridge. Once she'd said this. Yes, what is it, engine room? I'll report on how things went. All yellows got to green, Kaylee said to the captain. That's good. Did it take a while? Yes, Captain. Might be kinks working their way out of the system, since it didn't run that much, but since it hasn't been run that much. Alright, Kaylee, we have an early day tomorrow, so get up here to the dining room and get some food, as well as Chris, right? Aye, Cap. She flicked the button to end the call and turned to Chris, who was looking over the engine still. You think they have a problem, Chris? No, they did their job, just looking to see if anything is out of place. You don't trust these computers? Do you, Kaylee? She shook her head, but it was a no to that question. They want us to watch over things, but don't trust us to actually run them, she pointed out. Yep, this'll be a weird journey. It's not going to end well, I fear, Chris mused. You think that the boat's going to crash and destroy itself? He paused for a moment to consider that, and at best offered a half-hearted shrug. Not sure on that front, but it will be bad for people like you and me who do these jobs. Yeah, that's gonna suck without a doubt if something happens. With everything looking good, the two make one final sweep of the area before heading out. The four met up at the dining area of the ship, each of them standing awkwardly waiting for one another to talk. The wait was really for the computerized food-making machine to finish its job. It was whirring in the background and occasionally putting a plate before them. Whenever they went to take the plate, though, the machine tisked at them and pulled it back. Please wait until everything is ready. The food computer had now said this at least 4 times to each of their attempts. Well then, how is everyone settling in? The three looked to their captain, who decided to break the silence between them. It was expected of her, but at the same time not all that welcome from the expressions that she saw. Engines are fine, but I think they need more breaking in. They felt rough, but ready for the trip, as Chris said. Forecast looks bad, but we all knew that already, Cap. Those are the reports on the state of the ship, not how you're settling in, you three. My room is fine. Everything seems fine, though weird. What do you mean by weird, Kaylee? The mechanic engineer offered a shrug in return as she looked for the words to express herself. She took a moment and then started to talk. I don't get why they don't trust us. Why they trust us to move this boat, but they don't really trust us. I guess they lost too many people trying to cross the ocean would be my guess, the captain replied. If that's the case, why send us to be a part of this, Cap? From what I was told, Chris, it's because they want to make sure that they have a report on what's going on. This boat can and will make communications back to the mainland, but backups are necessary. Well, we're just probably pawns they can throw away in their expensive little operation. The captain shot Sky a look and shook her head no. Well, none of us have to like the little organization that hired us to get out and do this job. It might be better to not express it out loud, okay, Sky? Are we being listened to? Sky, I have no idea if they are or aren't listening to us. It would be better to assume that they are. The conversation was interrupted by a loud beep by the robot emerging from the cooking space with a large tray of food for them. Your food is now ready. If you please, go sit at the table. It will be served to you. The group found themselves herded from the nearby machine over a few paces to a table that had been bolted to the floor. Like all things on this ship, this space was kept minimal, and everything that could move was given a space to keep it from moving. Alright, or the food will get cold, and I don't want to have to start from scratch to make sure that the food is right, the computer announced. You really don't have to do that. Silly human, Mr. Sky. It's my job. So yes, I do have to do it, otherwise what would I be doing? Something more important than food? Computer, can you tell us why they built this ship with human quarters if it's going to be operated by artificial intelligence the whole way? Sky asked. Ursula gave her second-in-command another sharp look, but didn't say anything. It was a rather curious thing, and better to know what the ship knew. I do not know why. I'm assigned to make food for you, and that is all I can do, the computer responded. I think that's enough questions for the now, crew. Let's just eat and get on with our duties. Forgive me for pointing this out, Captain, but do we have anything else that needs to be done today? Chris asked. Yes, walk the corridors and shipping cargo, and look through the windows to the shipping cargo to make sure that everything is set. Once that is all done, we can settle in for the night, okay? Each of us is taking a corridor or something? Yes, Caleb, that sounds good. Every day, each of us will walk up and down the 4 corridors that go the length of the ship and cargo, and then return on a different corridor, checking to make sure that everything is good. There were a few frowns from the group, but the three nodded their heads yes to their captain's orders. Then they all settled in to eat the slightly brown goop of food that had been served to them. It didn't look good, but they ate it all up since there was little else to eat. After dinner and doing his hallway check, Chris had gone to his room to relax. At first he'd laid out on his bed, but his thoughts kept getting in the way, so he'd gotten up and went over to the computer to do some basic research on these engines. They weren't totally brand new, but new enough that all the kinks probably hadn't been found by the designers. Besides, it was good to learn about things. A knock on his door put a stop to that work, and he waved a hand towards the lock to release it. "Who is it?" "Sorry for interrupting your night, Chris." "It wasn't much rest, Sky. What's going on?" "It is my shift to watch over the ship, and I wanted to see what you thought of everything." "Didn't we go over this at dinner?" Yeah, but things skip and slip our memories for whatever reason, and I wanted to make sure you felt those engines and all the mechanical systems are taking care of you are all good. Not sure I trust the engines, but the rest of it I haven't had a good chance to look over, but I will. Chris said this with a nod. "So what do you think is wrong with those engines?" Sky then asked. "Not really wrong, but they're new, so they aren't really sure how they will act yet to what's going on. I know they've gone through a lot of testing, but an older engine would have done this work just as well." Sky cocked an eyebrow at him. It appeared the second in command wasn't a fan of questioning things either. "This isn't you being an angry old man shouting at clouds because of passing time?" Sky quizzed. "On this case, it would be better to go with tried and true before testing new stuff. That's my angle on this." "Alright, I'm only here to make sure that you think things will be okay. No pushing your buttons or anything like that." Chris felt himself flush in surprise at that comment. Had he put on an angry face to Sky's questioning? If he did, he hadn't realized it. It's fine, Chris. You look disturbed by my questions. We're both doing our jobs. Okay, I'm not sure with the way where things are going right now," Chris explained. "Noted an apology. As the captain says, we should all do our best to get along. My job is to get on everyone's cases in case of a bad thing going on. I know that's going to make me hated for questioning you and Kaylee, probably also Ursula. We need to get things straight." Yeah, sorry, Sky. Things should be good, I'm just nervous about the trip. Doesn't make sense and these engines are new," Chris added. "Yeah, it's a weird one, but we're getting paid a whole lot of money to sail a little bit of cargo. Can't complain too much." "I can, since it feels so weird." "Fair enough, Chris, fair enough. Do you need anything before we depart? I can put in emergency orders for which we'll get aboard right before we set off, but only if I do it right now," Sky asked. "They can get stuff for us. The CEO is going to get stuff for us," Chris responded, rather surprised by this. They're being nice. Ursula asked for some records to play during the journey. Kaylee for her favorite snacks. No, I think I'm good. I'll survive on what we've got. It should only take us a couple of days to cross, right? Ship's computer predicted that a journey of 7 days through bad weather. It's gonna be pretty bumpy. Well, shit, Sky, I don't know, Chris said. You sure you want to turn down the offer? Yeah, can we even get alcohol aboard? It seems like the type of thing that they would turn down, but that would be my request, Chris requested of Sky. It can't hurt to ask, Chris. Anything in particular, or just whatever we can get? Whatever is fine by me, Sky. I'm not a big drinker, but somehow I think we might need a bottle or 5 to get through this trip. I'll consider it requested. With a slight nod, Sky exited, leaving Chris sitting at his computer. His research and this weird, strange conversation had made him feel exhausted, and so with that, he headed to bed. From a perch, watching the last goods be moved aboard the ship, Hendrik watched. The weather was still crystal clear with nary a sky and cloud, but his stomach rumbled with worry. It's why he had a stiff drink beside him to fortify him even in this early morning sunshine. Is everything ready to go, Secretary? Yes, sir. The tugboat is arriving now and we'll take the boat out to the bay. Hendrik looked over to his secretary by his side. She held no cell phone or paperwork. In fact, she looked confident in the whole thing, which was nice because he didn't feel confident at all. Every last detail has been gone over with a fine-tooth comb. You would know the answer to that better than me, sir. You went over all the paperwork last night. I doubt you're even doing much straight thinking. Thank you, Jewel. That is so helpful. What time will they depart? In another few minutes, when the tug will come take them away. Any last words you wish to communicate to them? His secretary held out a walkie-talkie for him, but he shook his head no. There was nothing that was coming to his mind. I'm sure I'll think of something to say once they're underway, and I'll have the more powerful radio or a satellite connection to them that can get through. Yes, sir. A loud horn blasted through the morning air, announcing that the tug was ready and now in place. A few more minutes passed before another horn, this time from his ship, blast, which is the response to the blast from the tug. The two boats began to ease their way away from the docks, letting the ropes go from the pier and setting off for open waters. I hope it all goes well. You must be proud, sir. So few boating companies are even willing to risk putting boats in the water these days. Proud? Yeah, I guess. Nervous is more like it, and filled with a pit of worry that I spent tons of money for it all to go wrong on me. It will get to the other continent. You don't need to worry about that, sir. I'll make sure to keep track of how your new mistress is doing as she crosses the dangerous seas. Ursula stood watching the tugboat pull them along towards the bay. They were getting close to their release point, and she could only watch. The ship's computer was set to do everything and anything, which was annoying. It didn't let her do a single thing, or issue a single order to it. Computer driver. Yes, Captain? Is there something you need? You're the captain as you're in control of the boat. What I want to know is, when are you going to release from the tug? She asked the computer dryly. That job is handled by the engineering computer. Do you wish for me to get them for you, Captain? No, I want an answer to my question, which you can easily query from the other computer. There was a moment's pause before the computer responded. Yes, our release point is in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There was a slight jerk, and the ship began to thrum at a higher level, its speed picking up a knot or two, but still keeping slow and steady. After all, they still weren't out of the bay yet, and there were other boats that were around, but would only venture so far out into the wild ocean. Can you be a bit quicker on the small details, computer? I need to know what's going on before it happens. Do you? The computer asked. Yes, computer. I'm the backup to the backup of recording data and information. The bosses require that of me and of the first mate, Sky, to know what's going on. Do you understand? We will record it all for you in a captain's log, Captain. No, computer, you will tell me and or Sky, and we will keep separate logs that we will write. I don't understand, Captain. The computer protested. Neither do I, frankly, but this is the job I've been hired to do. Now, we're nearly out of the harbor, so if we could be so kind as to tell me where we're headed from here. As you wish. Once we are clear of this area, we will be rotating 15 degrees so that we can head along the coast for 20 nautical miles. Thank you for that information. Is everything running well? She asked. I will turn you over to the master computer for that information, Captain. Ursula shrugged helplessly, as there was a moment's pause, and then a slightly different computer-generated voice came to life. "This is the Master CPU. What can I do for you today, Captain?" "I want a diagnostic test on the ship to see how things are going." "Do you need that information now?" "It's part of our schedule, computer. You do a test once we're out of the bay to make sure that things are okay. It's recorded by your systems and filed away. A copy is also sent to me and or Sky so that we can send it along and file it into our own paperwork." "I can send that automatic. I can send it automatically," the Master CPU responded. "Yes, please do that. I told you could do that, but I still need a copy, computer." "This is very odd for us computers." "Well, it's odd for me as well. I have nothing to do but watch you do your job, so just please do your complete job and don't shortcut things." "That was never the plan, Captain." Yeah, just do your job." Ursula moved over to sit down on a nearby chair, feeling a bit worn out, which was already washing over her. For a computer to be giving her so much trouble over a simple request was quite a problem. She'd heard stories about it happening in factories, but those were always rumors and no one could confirm or deny them. The speaker system then sparked to life. Captain?" "Yes, what is it, Kaylee?" "I was wondering what I'm supposed to be doing. I can stare at screens all day, but I've got nothing else to do." "For now, keep a watch on them. That is all you can do." Following Ursula's orders, Kaylee stared at the screens that had a variety of readouts on them. The safety levels often flickered between green and yellow, but neither were a real concern to her. She knew the engines were a temperamental sort of thing, and they never, or rarely, operated on optimal levels. The computer, though, might decide that things weren't good, since that's a thing it could choose to do. "Engine computer." "Miss Kylie, what can I do for you?" "I was wondering what your shutdown protocols are." "In what instance, Miss Kylie?" "Say the engines are running well, but in yellow, according to you. What would you do to shut them down? When would you shut them down because of that?" There was a soft buzz as screens flickered, lines of data quickly scrolling past in a hurry. Then it stopped and returned to its normal status of charts showing things were running in red, yellow, or in green. "Our flowcharts of events doesn't dictate exactly when such things might happen." Kaylee felt her stomach lurch a bit. "So you could just trigger them at any time?" "I suppose I could, but I would rather not. It would interfere with my mission to get us across the ocean." That lurch in Kaylee's stomach felt like it was a sinking ship. She wasn't sure if that answer was any better to anything that had happened so far. End of part 1 of Against an Angry Ocean. Thank you for listening.